Alright, today we're going to talk about percents, fractions, and decimals. So we'll start off with a percent. So let's say we have 23%. Now to make that a fraction, you just put it over 100. Every percent out of 100, so our fraction would be 23 out of 100. And to make that a decimal, you just say it like it is, so 23 hundredths. So you put it with the correct place value, and it reads 23 hundredths. So let's try another one. Let's say we have 45 and 2/10%. This time we're going to go straight to a decimal. So to turn a percent into a decimal, you're going to move your decimal 2 times to the left. So we're going to get 452 thousandths. So that's how you write it as a fraction, 452 thousandths. Now we can reduce that fraction, and if you look at it, we can divide both of those by 4. So 4 goes into 4 once, 4 goes into 5 once, and 4 goes into 12 3 times. And then 4 goes into 1,250 times. So our reduced fraction would be 113 over 250. So sometimes it's easier to go from a percent to a fraction to a decimal, and sometimes it's easier to go from a percent to a decimal to a fraction, just depending on the number you're given. Alright, if we're given a fraction, 18/45, and we make that into a decimal and a percent. So you have a couple options here. First, you can just start dividing, because every fraction is a division problem waiting to happen. So we'll start with that. So we can do 18 divided by 45. 45 won't go into 18, so we add a decimal and a 0. And we see how many times will 45 go into 18. And it should be 4 times. 4 times 5 is 20. Carry the 2. 4 times 4 is 16. Plus 2 is 18. So we get 4/10. And then 4/10 as a percent. You're going to move that decimal twice to the right. Put in a 0 placeholder. So that would equal 40%. The other option is, if you can, reduce that fraction. So we could take that original 18/45 and we can divide both of those numbers by 9. So 18 divided by 9 is 2, and 45 divided by 9 is 5. So we get 2/5 as our reduced fraction. So we can take that 2/5 and make it tenths by multiplying by 2. So we get 4/10. 4/10 as a decimal is exactly as it sounds. 4/10. Then move your decimal twice to the right, and you would get 40%. So dividing is always going to work for you. Simplifying fractions sometimes will work, but in the end, it will always help with your division. So you can always simplify if the fraction is able to be simplified, but if not, just divide to get your decimal and then turn your decimal to a percent. Alright, now we're starting out with a decimal. So we have 535 thousandths. So to make that into a percent, just move your decimal twice to the right. So that would equal 53 5/10%. If you want to make it into a fraction, you just put it over its place value. So that's 535 thousandths. You divide both of those by 5. 5 goes into 5 once. 5 goes into 35 7 times. And then 5 goes into 10 twice. And then 5 goes into 0 and 0 0 times. So you get 17 over 200. Alright, so now we have four numbers and we need to order them from least to greatest. So anytime you're doing this, you want to think, what's going to be the easiest to do? Turn them all into fractions, turn them all into percents, turn them all to decimals. So if I look at this, I already have two decimals. So it makes sense on these numbers to just change everything to a decimal. So 2300s is going to say 2300s, it's already a decimal. And the 1900s is going to say 1900s because it's already a decimal. Now let's make my other numbers decimals. So 22% is a decimal, move your decimal twice to the left, and we get 22 hundredths. And then to make 1/5 a decimal, I can multiply that times 2 and get 2/10, and then write 2/10 as a decimal. And then just for comparison stakes, I can add a 0 to that 2/10 to give 20 hundredths. So now I can compare. So my lowest one there would be the 19 hundredths. So when you write this, you always want to write them in the original format. So that's going to be 19 hundredths. My next lowest would be 20 hundredths, and its original format was 1/5. My next lowest there is the 22 hundredths, which was 22%. And then my greatest value is the 23 hundredths, which was originally 23 hundredths.